View from the Gutters, episode 97. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Strong Female Protagonist, and to skip ahead to the recommendations section, skip to 5711.
Speaking of which, welcome to View from the Gutters, episode 97.
Is it 97?
Yes, I'm
Yes, it is
Selma
definitely
Bouvier.
97.
Who are you?
I'm Selma Bouvier.
Who's that?
I'm Marge's sister.
Oh, okay. I don't watch The Simpsons.
I
seen
used
it
to watch
before.
The Simpsons back when it was on TV like 15 years ago. It's a shame that it disappeared from the airwaves forever, never to be heard from again.
You guys ruined my joke, and I fucking hate all of you right now.
What was your joke?
I'm not doing it again.
Joe's-
Introduce your fucking self.
Joe's
so we
very
can talk
sick,
about this.
but I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Tobias Panchin.
And I'm Kid Reynolds.
You're just not going to introduce yourself. That's just
I
what's
did
happening.
introduce myself. The funny thing is, when I turned 30, the year I turned 30, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
That
Which
is
is not-
funny.
That's
It is
hilarious. Joe.
Funny for me
What a
because I pretty
great
much
story.
it happened very, very quickly, and it was pretty much like the way I found out from cancer is I woke up from the surgery where I had my thyroid removed, and they were like, "You had cancer, but you don't anymore now." And I was like, I feel like I should have gotten like a week to get sympathy from people first, but I could not talk at all after that, like above a whisper.
It was pretty creepy.
And even after like 6 weeks, I still, like, I sounded like fucking Patty and Selma, to the point where people like Eric from the shop,
Troutman.
Eric Troutman, friend of the show, fucking
and
started
designer
calling me
of
Patty.
swank business cards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
designer of sweet business cards. Actually started calling me Patty. And it was really annoying because I went from sounding like the Godfather to fucking Patty. And it was not cool, man.
It's not a good transition.
And so I'm back. I'm all like sick and congested and shit, and I can't.
'Tis the season.
It is. God
It's
damn it.
surprising that you went from talking in a whisper all the time to being the loudest person I know.
Well, I was always. I mean, that was
like
weird.
before, I'm sure you were loud.
Yes.
So
I, funnily enough, am not the loudest person I know, however.
You exist on a different sonic plane than everybody else.
who is
I
the
do.
loudest person you know?
Probably my sister.
Oh God,
Yeah, I could see that.
I just imagined you without a beard but a lady hair. With lady hair.
I imagined him as a lady, but with a beard.
Oh, okay. Well,
Which is
now
surprising because I've met his sister, and she's
Well,
a lovely person.
She is a lovely person. She
Well,
looks nothing like me. and
Well,
she
neither
does not
does
have a
your
beard.
brother.
No.
You guys look nothing alike.
Well, Chris looks
Are
more like.
you sure you guys are related?
Yes, I've seen pictures of Chris being born.
Yeah.
They're forever scarred on my psyche. Yeah, it's awful. It's fucking awful. And now all of you have that image right now.
Yeah. And if you want to hear Chris, you can listen to Spawncast.
Yeah, just went up.
Episode
Oh, I guess-
11 / also 10
Went up earlier this week.
Yeah.
of Back Matter.
I didn't know what episode it was.
We did
I
this really
guessed.
funny thing where all the back matters were ordered, and like View from the Gutters, when I start a back matter, I say the number, but then we put one from that we had recorded near the end and put it
Like in the middle.
In the middle, and throughout all our fucking numbering.
Yeah.
So like,
It ruined everything.
Well,
and I can't keep track of
we-
shit. You guys know that.
We put out a later one, but then we didn't go to the next one in numerical order, so they were one off. We went to a different one, and there were
Yeah.
still like two that we recorded before either of those.
yeah. So
It
we
hadn't
just
gone
fucked
out.
everything all up.
Yeah.
So the numbering
It was
on
awesome.
that is just not.
Doesn't matter. That's still like
I think
quality shit.
I mean, in the intro, I say the wrong number of the episode. It doesn't matter.
That's all good.
It's
This
whatever.
podcast is one of my favorite episodes of
It's
Back
good.
Matter that we've done.
Me too.
It's up there with the Tarot Cast, which
Yeah, I
Which is
listened to like half
fantastic.
of it.
it's like, Tarot Cast is fantastic.
I
They're a
love the
great group
Tarot
of
Cast. Yeah. I tell everyone to listen to that one.
They still hold it against me.
I'm sure,
Actually,
as they should.
on an upcoming Back Matter, I'm having those lovely people back, and we're going to do some really fun stuff. I'm looking forward to it.
You're not going to torture them again.
I'm not. No. I told them
That's
that
good.
this was my peace My peace present. What is that?
Peace offering.
Yes. Words
There you
go
go.
away.
Cool.
It's almost Christmas, Joe. It's going to be okay.
If I can make it through the next couple of weeks, I'll be fucking...
But hey, let's talk about comic books.
Yeah, we do that.
But first,
Announcements.
special announcements.
Why'd you announce that we're going to talk about comic books if you're going to make announcements
Because
first?
I wanted to
Yeah.
jerk everybody's
Oh,
chain.
my God.
This is a very short announcement. We put out our listener survey
Yeah.
last week. We've gotten a bunch of great responses, which
Yeah.
is awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
We
I
need a
love
bunch
you.
more responses because right now Chard is winning the competition for best beard amongst all the hosts, and that is a thing that cannot stand.
Oh, yeah.
Mine is the longest and the oldest.
That's both of those are true.
Wait
So-
a minute. You
And the
definitely
reddest.
cut yours since I've known you.
But you've had yours forever, though. As long as I've known you, you've had
Yeah.
a long beard.
The front part of my chin has not been cut for many, many years.
So
So-
if you have not filled out the listener survey, please go and do that. We will
Yeah.
link it in the show notes. It'll really help us out, and there's a special thank you for when you filled it out.
Yeah, we've been learning a lot, which is good. So,
Yes.
because we're restructuring a lot of stuff, and we're, hopefully launching a Patreon in January.
That's definitely going to be a thing.
Yeah, and
because
so-
people have been demanding it.
Yeah, and that's great. And I mean, we want to make the best show we can possibly make, and the only way we can know if we're making something that people like is if you tell us. So,
And the feedback thus far has been really popular.
Yeah.
Or really positive. People have been saying that we're doing good things.
cool.
Oddly, for people who listen to the show, going, yes, I like the show.
Yeah, it's weird.
Didn't expect that.
Somebody
Yeah.
the other day, we posted the Logic Comics back matter, and somebody was like, I forget that Joe can be calm and like rational when he's not screaming at Toby. And I was like, I do too. I do too. Also, I'm going to be taking the next 4 to 5 weeks off. I will be here for episode 100. But as you can tell, I'm
Yeah, just not
fucking
doing so
sick.
hot right now.
I'm tired. I work my real job, the job I have to do so that I can come here and do this, has gotten a lot more stressful lately, and
Yeah.
I need some downtime and I need to relax. But the brilliant and talented Kaylee Fleeman will be sitting in
Podcast
for
favorite, Katie
Yeah.
Fleeman.
me, and yeah, she's great. And
I didn't tell you guys this, but so we record this show on Monday nights.
Oh, I know this.
Okay.
I know this.
But on Sunday nights, I record another show, a moonlight on you guys with another show called Out of the Fridge. And we were down getting coffee at Burial Grounds last night, and we ran into Kaylee. And we were like, Kaylee, do you want to be on our Ms. Marvel episode? And she was like, sure. And so Kaylee was just on Out of the Fridge randomly last night because we ran into her at a coffee shop. So
I woke up this morning
Kaylee's
to a text
everywhere.
message. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kaylee.
Good deal.
Kaylee's blowing up right
Yeah,
now.
she's really becoming internet famous right now.
But,
She's trending.
Yeah.
She is trending, and
Kaylee Fleeman trending.
she's awesome.
She has
Although I
also
would-
been doing a kick-ass job running our Tumblr page.
Yeah.
And her Facebook
And her
page.
Facebook and
Thank you, Kaylee.
tweeters? Is she
is-
running
Wait,
the tweeter?
The tweeter is me.
I don't know how to
So,
tweet her, so.
so fun fact,
You can tell because we never update our Twitter.
Microsoft Podcasts. I recently got a cheap Windows phone because it was cheap.
Yeah.
Because cheap is good. And I was looking up the podcasts, and when I typed in View from the Gutters, Out of the Fridge was the first recommendation. And the reason why is because number 2 and number 3 are both View from the Gutters, but different people subscribe to different ones. So if you combine both of the View from the Gutters results, it's higher. But because it's split into 2 feeds,
Why is it split into two?
I don't know. One's
That's
called
weird.
View from the Gutters Comic Book Club, and the other's just View from the Gutters.
Oh, yeah. I originally the feed was just called View from the Gutters, and I
Yeah.
added the words Comic Book Club a while back because it wasn't showing up in iTunes search results.
Yeah, if you search
a little
comic books,
behind the
it
scenes,
wouldn't show
look
up.
for you. So
Okay. Yeah, Microsoft separates those, although both of them link to our webpage, and both of them have every episode we've ever put up.
all right.
Weird.
and even
Thank
some we
you,
haven't
Microsoft.
yet, which is weird.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
so-
comic books
Yeah, we
Comic
do
books.
for
that.
reals.
for realsies.
And this week we're talking about a webcomic.
Yeah.
Single white female.
Superhero
Wait, no, that
girl.
was
No?
no. We're both wrong.
It's
Point of no return.
Strong Female Protagonist.
what
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
And I
Actually-
really forgot to look up the author's name
It's
or names before we started. So
well, totally.
Brennen-
Toby has
Brennen-
total recall about the author's name. I'm going to tell to Chard that I thought it was funny that he said superhero girl, because reading this, I thought this was everything I wanted from superhero girl and did not get.
Yeah.
This had all the character development and fucking total
art?
the art, the comment, the social commentary.
I said
the comments.
heart, but also art.
You said what?
I said heart.
I
said
heart. Huge amounts of heart. All the social commentary.
It's very introspective.
Just literally everything I was missing from Superhero Girl was encapsulated in Strong Female Protagonist.
I know that one of the people's name is Brennen, and he is a comedy writer and does actually have some good stuff.
Yeah, Brennen Lee Mulligan and art by Molly Ostertag.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but Joe, go ahead with what you were saying, because you were saying good things.
Well, I just feel like one of the reasons I was so blah about Superhero Girl is because I spent the whole thing desperately feeling like this commentary, like there was this conversation she wanted to have with the audience that she could never get to, and this fucking jumps in with both fucking feet, like right into the deep end, like right off the bat, you're in it, and I like that. I like that it doesn't. At no point is it coddling. It's like, this is the world, and here now you've been introduced to the character, you've been introduced to her world, and boom, now you're fucking in it.
Yeah, I definitely love the way that this comic opens up with her going to the protest, and there's a superhero there, but he has fire powers. And she's like, what are you going to do? Set the entire crowd on fire? Like, nobody wants you here. We don't want you here. The cops don't want you here. Like, you're a walking, talking liability to everyone around you. What do you even think you're doing?
Right.
But then she turns to her friend and is like, because her friend's like, they wouldn't do anything to me with you here. And she's like, don't ever fucking put me in that position again.
Yeah, don't ever use me for my powers.
And that is the moment you never get in the superhero comic. And you know that, like, they have to fucking feel that way, you know? Like, that moment for me is even more powerful because she's just like, I'm not here for you to fucking hide behind, right? Like, I'm a person. I have a fucking life.
And that's the thing. What's so amazing about this series is how human the characters are. When we're talking about, when we talk about superheroes so often, like they're these, either these upstanding, like righteous guardian, like paragons of justice and good and can do no wrong, like, your Supermans and your Wonder Womans, or people go the opposite direction and they're these like very flawed, very like they're assholes who go around murdering people and just have all these like fucked up issues. Like very, very rarely do you get superhero characters that are just ordinary people.
Well, I feel like you get archetypes, and either those are archetypes of like heroic archetypes or they're, villainous archetypes. But these aren't archetypes. They're the influences of superhero comics are clear on some of these characters. Like, obviously, there's analogies you can draw between what's her name and Wolverine.
Oh, Feral.
Feral and Wolverine, and the pint size and like the Atom and Batman kind of combined. Yeah. And so that influence is clear, and she's Superman basically, right? But what I think is so cool about this series, and something that I really respect about it a lot, is the time I've talked about this before on episodes, but a lot of the mistakes you make about a series that you're creating are made before you even begin to write the series. And those are in the big choices. The choices of setting, the choices of time period, and the choices of like in what world does this exist? And something I find really compelling about this is it's set in the real world. It's not set in a world where there's a legacy of superheroes. It's not set in a world like the DC universe where there's kind of like always been superheroes and Superman was influenced by previous heroes. This is a world more like Rising Stars, where like this is the first breed of superheroes, kind of like this is the first generation of superheroes.
Right. And
that first generation only kind of lasted 5 years. Like, this isn't The Incredibles where they were like superheroes for a long time. It was like, this was it, They turned 15, they got superpowers, and now...
And like they're
20.
They beat all the tier 1 supervillains.
They won.
Yeah.
They won. The war's over. Basically, like this combat between superhero and supervillain ended relatively quickly. And I think that the series does some interesting things when it examines that, because not only did the strongest superhero in the world quit, but also the most powerful villain in the world, wasn't defeated. He gave up. And he gave up because he realized, like, what he was trying to subvert, like, he wasn't able to subvert it in the way that he wanted to.
Right.
And so now he has a whole totally different approach about, like, how he's going to, quote unquote, shape the world.
Which is really interesting, especially because we know so little about who he is and what he's doing.
Right.
Like, we kind of have an insight to his character.
Right.
Especially when he and Allison go to see Farrell.
Right.
But he's also doing deals, like trying to investigate who knew about the biodynamic people before the, like, big announcement.
Right.
Like, he's getting files. He's obviously working towards a goal.
And I think what's so cool about that is in this comic you have the costumed heroes and the kind of costumed villains, or like the mutated villains, right? And those are like, oh, this is the world's true villains. But those are only villains with superpowers. The world has other villains. The world has villains who have been there a lot longer than superpowered villains. And so what I think is really interesting is it's like the superpowered villain, the mind reader, he's looking for the real villains, which in my opinion are the people that knew about biodynamic people and killed all the people that could have made the world a better place because it would have threatened their... It's not, I don't want to say it's like very Illuminati, secret society-ish, but to me it's very much... kind of how I see the world in some ways is like there are people with so much power that they can shape things.
Right.
Then we'll never see it.
And the question in my mind is this a group of people that was working together, or is it just a bunch of individuals? Was like they're a pharmaceutical company who was like, this person's powers will cure cancer.
Right.
We need to kill them or we'll be out of business.
Well,
exactly.
And they killed that person, and somebody else killed the person who could like just clean up carbon in the atmosphere.
And in a lot of ways, to me, that's more interesting than the Illuminati because it's scarier because you can't beat it.
And I think it's more appropriate to the series as it's happened thus far, because the whole problem has been if you're Mega Girl and your powers are you're invulnerable and you can punch stuff, how do you save the world?
Right.
Well,
Like,
I think...
what do you do against a problem that you can't punch?
Didn't I swear to God, your mom, when we talked about this on Back Matter, because we just had a conversation about this, said something very similar to like, Superman can't punch starvation, you know?
Right.
You can't beat up Ebola. And like, reading this, I totally flash back to that conversation because I think it's a salient point, you know? It's like, superheroes are nice as an escape, but it's very much it's indicative of a world where you can solve your problems by like figuring out the secret code and then punching the bad guy in his face and sending him off to jail, right? It's like the world is still a shitty place, and every once in a while they'll kind of throw some big world issue of bone like, oh, Reed Richards has synthesized grain that can grow in sand or blah 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 blah, but it's like it's never really kind of they've never really addressed the issue. All they've done is create a fantasy so that the superheroes don't seem so that when you're like, close the issue, you're like, oh, well, that's great. Like the Fantastic Four defeated the Wizard in this episode, but why aren't they doing anything to stop, you know, like horribly communicable diseases or like shit like that? And that you can kind of point at these little moments where they're like, well, they are.
Well, like in Marvel Comics right now, you've got the whole Hickman Avengers thing where the multiverse is like fucking up and all of existence is going to not end or is going to not exist.
It's going to not end.
And it's like, that's such a completely ridiculous problem. Like, it has absolutely nothing to do with reality.
Right.
And you kind of have to invent problems like that for superheroes because, and I talk about this on the episode with my mom, which is Back Matter, I think, 9, if you want to go check it out. Superheroes are born out of World War II and the Cold War. And so much of their existence is predicated on this idea of fighting this like existential army, you know, either, you know, the Nazis or the communists. Like, this is an enemy that will swarm over us. Like, we're going to be bombed. There's going to be invading armies. Like, they're going to come and kill us all. And we need warriors who have the power to fight back.
But it's also, I think, interesting that comic book heroes, like what you're saying, like you have to create these very abstract situations for them to combat, like the multiverse collapsing, because you can't just have Superman like waltz over to Europe and punch out Hitler in one episode and be like, the war's over, and then like the war goes on for 10 more years. Like you can't really do, I mean, like why would you do that? Because they can't defeat real world problems.
And that's the thing, like since the collapse of communism, like American comic books, like superhero comics, have been struggling with this existential issue of what do we fight? And like you notice in the 90s, like things got very kind of existentially weird, and it was like, you know, there's a lot of hero versus villain violence that had very little to do with social stuff. And then
there was also a lot of like federally funded superheroes.
Right. And it was like conspiracies and aliens and demons. Like, I mean, the whole Wildcats thing was against the Damonites, who were demonic aliens.
Well,
and there was a lot of that stuff that happened, and it was only in the War on Terror period, like 2001 forward, where things got much more concentrated back on like, oh, there's terrorists and there's, you know, people plotting to like blow up buildings, and like we got to root out the bad guys. Like it got more focused on real world issues again. And that's slowly gone away as people have kind of, I mean, the War on Terror got very long in the tooth, and they're kind of winding down this idea of terrorists as this great existential threat to our way of life.
Yeah, I can see it. I think that you're right on that. The end of the Cold War brought about a lot of changes in the way that people thought about superhero comics. Specifically, you have works like Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns, which are very much like, this is a post-Cold War era book, which is like, how do we have this big machine of a federal government and a federal military power, and they don't really know what to do with themselves. And we have all these superheroes that are kind of a function of that. And like, what do they do now that it's all over? Because those books both have a very consistent theme of kind of like retired superheroes. Like they've all quit, you know?
Well, Watchmen is very much a Cold War book, because the whole thing is like there's this, it's when the war in Afghanistan is going on.
Right.
And there's this constant question, like, is Dr. Manhattan going to get involved?
Right, but I guess I see in a lot of ways like the late 80s, because that came out in 84, 85.
86.
Okay. I see that as kind of like the end of the Cold War, though.
It's
right?
it's kind of at the very tail end,
Yeah.
but it's during, I think, that most kind of paranoid moment of like the world could end at any moment. Like the bombs are going to fall and we're all going to die. Like the world will be consumed in darkness.
Well, the 80s was like that, not just
and like,
for
I think
terrorism, though.
Right, but I think that is very much the height of the period of superheroes as weapons of mass destruction, like the nuclear metaphor of the superhero.
Yeah, and that's definitely apparent in Watchmen, and I think something that Dark Knight touches on a lot too is the 80s as rampant crime in America, like the exponential increase in the crime rate in America that seemed unending.
Yep.
And was like, if crime continues to increase like this, like this country will be decimated.
Yeah, it was in the early 90s, like 93, when the crime rate started to fall and has continued to fall consistently since.
Yeah.
But there was very, very much that feeling of like urban decay, like society is crumbling around us.
You look at films like RoboCop. And like
I don't know if we can include RoboCop because it was written by Frank Miller.
Well, the second and third one were written by Frank Miller.
First
one's not. But you have RoboCop, which is like a near future, right? But it's the near future of an 80s where the crime rate never went down, right?
Well,
because
but,
our future is nothing like RoboCop, obviously, but like that was the projected future of like a city's
movies were either about dystopian crime-ridden futures or how badass the military was. Like, look at Top Gun.
That's 90s though, right?
No, Top Gun is 80s, man.
Yeah, well, it's part of that G.I. Joe like glorification of the American military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to beat the Ruskies.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, I mean, that whole tradition of filmmaking is really interesting if you look at it, because I think there was a lot of fear based on it. And I think Watchmen kind of taps into that and uses it very effectively to show that kind of superheroes would not work the way you wanted them to, right?
Right.
Because you would get, it's like eventually you just get somebody that's like, well, the most easy way to do this is to do this.
Well, you have a book written previously by the same author, Alan Moore, when he wrote Miracle Man. And essentially the significant thesis of Miracle Man. And it's a hard book to read now because it hasn't aged that well. And it was so hard to find. Like, everyone was like, oh, Miracle Man, Miracle Man, Miracle Man. And they built it up to this, like, as, like, the greatest comic of all time.
I've been reading it for the first time as Marvel has been re-releasing it. I've actually been enjoying it.
I think it's great. I don't know that it is as good as the hype for that book was.
That's probably true.
And I think that people who are reading it for the first time will have a similar experience as people who read Watchmen for the first time and go, I don't get why this is a big deal. But Miracle Man, one of the significant theses of that book was essentially when the Billy Batson type character was like, if I just give up existing and you're Miracle Man all the time, couldn't you just make the world in your image? Like, couldn't you just make it a better place? Like, you have God level powers. Like, couldn't you rule this world as, like, a god king? And so, like, that book examines kind of those ideas.
Right.
And I think this book touches on that, too, because when she meets with the guy with the blades for hands...
Yeah. Cleaver.
Perfect name for a guy with blades for hands.
God,
She
I
has
actually
the,
feel
like...
sorry for that guy.
Yeah, and I love that. It reminds me of when we talked about Miyazaki and how there are, like, no true villains kind of conversation that we talked about on Nazca, but because I like that how that character kind of has moments of redemption in the book. But she talks about how, like, she wishes it was as easy as just punching everything and that she could make the world be better. And she has that moment where she loses it in front of the clinic where she's visiting Pharaoh, where all the protesters are. And she's like, the cop comes up to her with a gun and is like, you're under arrest. And she just puts the gun in her mouth and fires all the bullets and spits them all out. And it's like, what could you possibly do to me? Like, no one can stop me. No one. Like, what are you going to do? Yeah. And I think that that's a huge moment in that book because it's what makes Superman so cool, in my opinion, is, like, he has the power to just literally force everyone in the planet to do whatever he wants.
There's this quote floating around, and it's Batman, and he's pretty much, like, talking about how Clark is a god, and he's got laser eyes, and he could kill everybody, and, like, it's a good thing for everybody that he doesn't realize it. And I'm like, no, that's a fucking gross, like, misunderstanding of the character of Superman. Yeah. He fucking knows he's a god. He doesn't care. Well, like, he doesn't see himself that way. He sees himself as one of us. He sees himself connected to all of us. That's why he stands in such stark relief to Batman, who sees himself as
above and separate from us. And I think that that's a good point, and I think that it's great that they show the cover of All-Star Superman in this book, because there's a point in All-Star Superman where Superman is talking to someone and he talks about, like, why he doesn't just step in and force change on people, and he's like, why would I put myself above them? Like, how am I to judge the way they live their lives? Like, I'm here to protect them, but I'm not going to force my will upon them because this isn't my home. Like, this is my home now, but, like, I've come to their place. Like, I have to let them live their life. Right?
And that's one of the reasons why this book is so interesting to me, because Allison is coming at it from the opposite point. Mm-hmm. She's like, I have all this power. I want to change the world, but I can't. Right. Because nothing that I know how to do would make a difference. Right. Like, she can't fly. She doesn't have laser vision. All she can do really is just go around punching people and destroying things. Like, she can jump. Yeah. But, like, nothing that she could, like, the only thing that she can do is kill people. Right. That's it. And she's like, I want to change the world. I want to fix all the problems. I don't know how to do it. Yeah. I don't know.
There's that really good moment where, even before this, which is a great show me, don't tell me moment, where she's trying to fix the playground. Yeah. And Pint Size is like, nobody can use this. And she's like, no, I have to fix it. I have to make it right.
Yeah. I'll learn how to fix it. I'll learn how to make it right.
And it's like, for somebody who is perhaps the most powerful super in the world, she is surprisingly powerless. Like, there are other people who can do so much more than she can. I mean, Pint Size is super smart.
Right.
Like, he's invented all of this stuff. There are all these things he can do. She meets a teleporter. You know, she meets Farrell, who can just grow organs.
The woman who is now the teacher at her school, who with the
she's
robot
the
leg.
super smart one. Pint Size isn't.
That's
super
in
smart.
issue
He can just-
5.
Oh, did we not read issue 5?
No,
She meets-
we
I mean,
stopped at issue 4.
I read all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did too.
Anyway,
Well, I mean, I have read all of it, but
she meets that woman who is essentially like the metaphor for that, who is like, I'm so smart, this is what I could do with my powers, I have this company and all this stuff. And I think what's so great about Allison as a character is a lot of people say they can't relate to Superman, which I don't understand, but I think that everyone can relate to Allison in this book, because I think for the most part, most people want the world to be a better place. Like, I don't think there's a lot of people out there that were like, I kind of wish the world was shittier than
Well,
this.
I'll even take you one better. I would say 90% of the problems we have in this country alone come from everybody wanting the world to be a better place and not being able to agree on what that constitutes.
Well, and absolutely. I mean, like, it's something that Brant and I have talked about before, but, you know, this is a huge country with a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different cultures living all together in one. And I don't mean, like, cultures of, like, immigrant cultures. I mean, like, American cultures. Like, the Southwest is, like, very different than the Southeast, and, like, the Northwest is
and
very
even
different
cultures
than...
of thought.
Right, and so it's that kind of, like, we grew up in a different, essentially what could easily be a different country from here. You know, we have the same federal government, but, like, living in Alabama, growing up in Alabama is nothing like growing up in any other state, or, you know, vice versa. You know, like, everybody's going to want something a little bit different because of the culture that they were raised in and stuff. But and that's why, like, America has such a hard time coming to consensus on a lot of issues. But I think that she's struggling with that in the book, where she goes to different professors and different people that she trusts, and it's like, what's the most important thing? Like, how do you make the world a better place? And they're like, commerce, the economy, education, like, and that's a scene where she gets the texts about her dad and has to like jump away, but like,
which is such a great issue.
Yeah,
because I mean, the whole thing is her dealing, like, her dad has cancer, her dog died, like, her sister is going through this rebellious period, and like, she can't fix any of those problems.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the thing. That moment where her sister walks away from her and she's like, I can't save Dad. It's like, if you read that and you were like, that was awesome, and you're going to turn around and be like, oh, I can't relate to Superman, you're full of shit, right? Because Superman has fucking lived that. And like, most of his incarnations, his father, the death of Jonathan Kent, is like something he can't fucking stop. And like, that's this other really nice kind of continuity with All-Star Superman is that moment.
Yeah. Well, and you and I know, because we've read a lot of Superman, that like everyone can relate to Superman.
Yeah, it's
what people mean when they say I can't relate to Superman.
He's not dark and angry and punchy.
It means I've never read any Superman.
Well, that's
is
the other
literally
thing
what that means when you say that.
It means that I read it on the internet, so I'm just going to take up that stance without knowing anything about the character.
I read Superman Grounded.
I did too, and that's a whole other thing.
You've read All-Star Superman.
I was making a joke.
Oh.
Like, you've never read Superman. Well, what if they've only read Superman Grounded?
Well, there's there's a G. Wilson in there, issue in there that's
really
not that bad.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I would buy them a cup of cocoa, and I would put a blanket around their shoulders, and I'd say, come with me. And then I would hand them
We'll take you to a better place.
Or something, a little bit better.
A little bit.
And
yeah, I mean, that's not to say that there aren't bad Superman stories. There are bad stories about a lot of characters. But,
the best character ever has bad issues.
Yeah, except for Wolverine and Deadpool.
I also
Wolverine has never had a bad. No, it's true. No,
you're right. The best character ever, Green Arrow, has never had a bad issue. Even when
patently not true.
Even when Kevin Smith wrote it.
That is patently untrue.
Something else that I really respect about this comic is how much shit they're willing to heap on their main character. And I don't just mean like, oh, she's got problems, but like her professor gives her a bad grade because she killed his husband.
Yeah.
Like, she did that. Like, she threw a robot into a building and killed a dude.
Yeah.
Like,
the thing I love
that is not something that you would see, I think, from Marvel or DC even today. Like, painting their their heroes as so negligent.
Fallible.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that this comic does so expertly is it teases out a lot of the threads that Kirkman is getting at in Invincible.
I totally agree.
But putting them under a microscope, you're getting a much more deep and in-depth look because they can do that with Strong Female Protagonists. You know, like Kirkman, even though it's his own book, he still he has to stay within the arc he has planned, and so he can kind of throw these things up, but like he's got to kind of continue the story and having Strong Female Protagonists. That's like, I feel like the point of it is like, look at these things. You've not thought about heroes in these ways, and so you can tease those things up, and you can look at them. She doesn't get closure. She never gets to have that moment with her professor where she's like, "I'm sorry, I was a dumb kid. I didn't know." She doesn't.
Right.
She just she's going to carry that around with her now.
I think that Invincible is much more of a deconstruction of superhero tropes, whereas I think this is much more an examination of the superhero.
And
the nature.
To be fair, too, Invincible is still a superhero book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like he's punching bad guys every week, and there's alien invasions and all this stuff he has to deal with as the world's predominant superhero. And they get to examine stuff like this with Adam Eve quitting and going to Africa to help people, and with the the dinosaur guy, Dinosaurus, and like Mark's plans to help Dinosaurus, and like that some people will have to die for good things to happen in the world, and like Mark. Like, it helps him deal with stuff later in the book, like the Viltruminite, and spoilers, but, like, that there are Viltruminites still in the universe. Like, it helps him deal with that because he knows, like, for good things to happen, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. Like, that's where he learns that lesson. And I think that this book, although it is a book about a superhero, it's a book about a girl who wants to save the world and wants to change the world. She also happens to be invulnerable and super strong, and at one point in her life was a superhero. But it's still just about a college girl. Like, she's 20-something, and she wants to make the world a better place, like many 20-somethings in the world.
I think she's literally 20.
Yeah. And I think that there's... Issue 5 has great moments in it that I don't know if we want to talk about, but... because we technically didn't read that far. But
well, if you don't want to know, pause the episode, go read like the 20 pages.
Right.
That'll take you 2 minutes.
Right.
And then come back.
Okay. Yeah. So we're back. And in issue 5, when...
Wow, you did that fast.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Good job reading. In issue 5, she's at the party, and there's the guy carrying that girl out of the party.
Oh, yeah,
and they treat her like a villain for wanting to help that girl. And they're like, can't you just chill, dude? Just chill.
Yeah.
And she's like, I am chill. Unless by chill you mean just pretending that there's bad shit not happening around me. And she's like, oh, that is what you mean by chill. You mean just pretend like everything's fine. And
I love that moment because I hate her fucking roommate. I think she's just this vapid kind of... And I understand why she's there, right? Like...
She's a foil, and she's
a foil,
a scummy person.
But like... It's also this representative of Allison is her name, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She just wants to have a normal life, and she wants to have friends, and, it's like, you can't...
She's kind of cursed with this desire to make the world a better place, and while a lot of people, like, want to make the world a better place, like, no one really expects it of you. Like, if you're 20-something in college and you're like, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to make it a better place, nobody's like... Yeah, that's exactly what we think you're going to do because you're this person. But she is that person.
Yeah.
Like, she was Mega Girl.
Yeah.
Like, Mega Girl's supposed to save the world.
She dropped out of middle school to be a superhero.
Right.
Like, she doesn't know things, and people look up to her like, oh, you're supposed to know what's going on. You're supposed to be responsible.
And so
you're
she's
a superhero.
Cursed. She can't walk away. And her roommate has the luxury, the privilege of being able to ignore that there's bad shit around her and just go, just chill.
Well,
like, no one
that
expects me to save the world.
Because I think that for a long time there was this culture of like, yeah, we're against the men and blah, blah, blah. And like, fuck the man and fuck corporate culture and fuck your fucking Starbucks and blah, blah, blah. But like, and these were people that would like talk about patriarchy and stuff like that, but would not fucking raise their voices to stop somebody from fucking date raping somebody, right? Because it meant being not cool.
Right.
And like, I think there is a culture of like this kind of like cool social justice.
Well, just
where
look
it's
the other
like,
way, man. Don't be a narc.
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Right?
Don't be a fucking narc. And it's like, nah, that's not really what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, what does Allison say? Like, when you finally meet the man, he's most likely going to be a super chill dude, right? And I just love that whole scene.
Yeah,
Is just fucking great. It
I think
really spoke to me about.
I love the whole book, but that, you know, trade 5 or issue 5 is when I was like, this is an amazing book.
Yeah.
Like, I liked everything up till then. Like, I was definitely into it.
well, I know it's much earlier, but I like the scene at the very beginning when everybody's like, "We're gonna go get tattoos," and she's like, "I can't."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh," and she's like, "No, physically, I can't."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, my superpower is a disability.
Yeah. I love that too.
There's a lot of good. I mean, I really enjoyed the shit out of this. Like, pretty much from page 1.
Yeah.
And it does not. I love that it's unrelenting in some ways, and I love that it's very touching in other ways. And but I love that it doesn't flinch. Like, it seems lately that like being genuine and being real has been a theme going on, and I feel like this is very genuine. Like,
Oh yeah.
they're not turning away from this. I never feel pandered to, or never feel fucking like it's what's going on is gushy or like anything like that. I feel like everything happens very naturally.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, comes out of good plotting. I think it comes out of good story writing. I think it comes out of good characterization. And that's awesome to be able to like nail all 3 of those. That's huge.
Yeah, this is a really impressive work, and it's one of the things that I love so much about webcomics as a medium is that they're able to do so many things that more, let's say, capitalized comics can.
Right.
Like, we need to print this, we need to ship it, like, we need to sell this many copies or we can't do it.
Right.
Like, going in a webcomic format frees you up to go, like, you know, hey, we can get by on a few bucks a month for server costs and whatever time it takes us to make it. You know, on the same level that we've been doing this podcast for 2 years. Like, it allows a level of genuineness that you can't necessarily have when you're selling a product.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that makes it so good and that it has allowed it to find an audience that is willing to support it is great.
Yeah, I think this series, I love webcomics too, and I love anytime you pitch webcomics on the show, I pretty much vote for them because I don't ever really read webcomics. You know, I've between this show and Out of the Fridge and Top of the Stack, like, I read a lot of comics, and so when I have free time, kind of my last thought is like, oh, let's read some more comics. But even when it is, I still tend to go pick up like a trade of something that I really love. So it's fun to get exposed to a lot of great webcomics, and I find myself really enjoying a lot of similar themes across webcomics. But the book that this reminds me the most of is in the character moments. And the character moments remind me the most of another book that we did on a long run, which was Empowered.
Yeah.
We talked at length about how genuine that book felt, about how real all the character moments felt between Emp and her boyfriend, and like Emp and the people in her life. And this book like nails that for me.
Oh, it does.
It feels so good. But Cade, what'd you think about this book?
I really liked it. I did not read issue 5 right now. I'm wishing I had.
Oh, sorry, Cade.
Well, the beauty is that you can go and do that after we're done.
That's very true.
It's in color too, which is cool.
Oh.
Yeah. And I dug the color on it. So.
Yeah, they really, and the art has gotten appreciably better from the first page of issue 1 to the last page of issue 5, which is still ongoing.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things about webcomics is you can track the artist usually because they don't have a rotating group.
Yeah. I really liked it. I liked it from the very beginning. It reminded me a lot of the webcomic I pitched a while back. I don't remember what it's called right now, but it was by the same guy as the Walkie comic.
Oh, is that Dumbing of Age?
Yes. Yes, it was.
David
Willis?
Something like that, yeah.
Anyways, it's that one is also about, college kids finding their place in the world. Like, that's a lot of what I liked about this book was just that. It's like you can take the superhero out of her, and it's, you know, it's a look at her. You know, there's a person. It's not a superhero. It's a person. Well, she's a person. Sorry, it's saying it was kind of mean, but I meant in a general sense, like the story is not about a superhero. I mean,
the story is about Allison.
I don't know how to talk right now.
It's not about
being a
Exactly.
superhero. But now she's a college kid.
Yes. And she has real problems that people do. She can't deal with them the same way that normal people do. But it is relatable.
Yeah.
It is very relatable.
Absolutely.
And I really like that. I mean, I can't think of too much to say just because I agreed with most of everything that was in the book.
Was there anything you didn't like?
There was only one moment where I was like, huh, that's jarring. And it was actually some of the speech bubbles were not laid out properly.
Yeah.
I noticed that too. A couple times I'm like, wait, who's saying this? Because she did, the artist does this interesting thing where it's like the person who's not in frame will be the one talking. And so the word balloon won't have a tail because it's not coming from anyone in that panel.
I've seen
it's
that
coming from
before.
like the point of view character of like what you're saying. That threw me at first.
No, I've seen that before, and so I've kept up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, there's also a couple panels where, like, the person who says something first on the far left will be at the very bottom. So then the response to that will be the very middle. And then what goes next is the top right. But because the top right and the middle one are connected, I always read the top first and go down. And that was the wrong order to do them in. But, like, even that, once after, like, I read it and it's like, that doesn't make sense. I read it differently and it's like, oh, it does. It didn't detract from the comic at all.
Yeah.
So, like, I really loved this comic and I would recommend it to almost anybody.
There's a couple characters I don't know if I wish they were written a little bit better or if we had just gotten a little bit more insight into them. But his name's Patrick, right? Who used to be
Menace. Yeah.
He's written in such an interesting way that, like,
It's actually something I wanted to bring up.
But
like, I felt the moment where he's like, I don't actually identify as a person.
yeah,
Like, I felt was actually a really strong character moment because there are so many psychic characters in superhero comics. And you never really get the sense that, like, that makes them different in any way from any other person. And, like, he is very, very different. Like, he can't turn his power off.
right.
Like, he just has other people's thoughts parading through his mind all the time. To the extent that, like, he doesn't even identify as a person. Like, I am just this... I am one line of thought amongst many that I perceive. What is the boundary between me and them?
Right.
Like those other thoughts. And I don't know, it was really interesting.
And I love the idea that he used to be this great, like, villainous mastermind who, like, had an organization and convinced people to do specific things for him. But I think I like the relationship that he has with Allison now. I think it's interesting. But the one thing that I find falls really flat for me is I don't really ever get a motivation from him. Like, why did he have this big, like, villain organization? Like, why was he essentially like the Cobra Commander or like Lex Luthor of this world? Like, what was his purpose?
Well, I think
like,
that's something that we have yet to find out.
And he had these people like causing mayhem and killing people and stuff. And was it just to like distract superheroes or something? And that's where I'm like, I guess I just don't really buy it yet. I don't buy why he was a supervillain because the only time I've ever seen him, he's just kind of like a friend to Allison. He's not killing anyone. Allison kills more people in this book than he does, right? And like, I think it's interesting that he is portrayed in this way, and I guess I don't buy the fact that he used to be a supervillain. I also don't buy that a supervillain who was the like Cobra Commander, Lex Luthor, or whatever of the world would just give up. For no reason. What's the reason?
My impression is the reason is that he basically went like, I see all these problems. I want to make the world a better place. I need to tear down these structures. And so he spent years being a supervillain and basically went, I've done as much as I can possibly do. Being a supervillain isn't going to further my objectives in any way, so I'm just going to stop.
Yeah, and what's up with the malice that's around now?
Oh, the menace that's putting together, like putting his network back together.
Right.
Again, another thing that we don't know yet.
And so I don't know if it's just that I think that that's like a real detriment to the book, or it's just something that I really want more of, but I think that more character building on that character could have been done earlier on, so like I could have more of a feel for what's going on with the world of supervillains. Because as you know, listening to me talk about Venture Brothers and like superior foes, like I love supervillains. I love everything about the day-to-day life of supervillains and like why they do what they do. And I think the one supervillain we really get a good look at in this book with Cleaver is awesome, and I want more of that. Yeah. So I think it's not, I don't know that it's really like, oh, this book fails because of that, but it is the one thing that I really wanted more of in this book. Is like a look at the supervillains.
I think I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I hope I get it. I mean, I'm going to continue to read this. It's so hard for me to read webcomics because you get 2 pages a week.
Yeah.
Like, I can't... I'm
just not going to read it.
I'm going to forget about it for 10 years, and I'll go back and read it then. And, like, that sucks. But I'm also going to buy stuff from them because the print copies are out now, and they're going to a lot more cons, so hopefully I can get some, Strong Female Protagonist swag at some point, buy a t-shirt or something.
And I hope somebody tells me when Volume 2 comes out so that I can jump on it.
Actually, it's part of the conspiracy.
Yeah, we're not going to let you know, Cade.
The Cade-spiracy.
Cade-spiracy. Well, because I think it's important to support webcomic creators.
Yeah,
like if you like this kind of stuff, you may not tune in and read every week's issues, right? Like I understand that that's frustrating for a lot of people, but if you read this and you enjoyed it, like there are ways to get the creators money that they can continue to make the best product they can possibly make.
They have a Topodico store, don't they?
Yeah, and they have...
I believe they have a Patreon as well.
I think so, and they did a Kickstarter for their last trade paperback, which is over, and that's now published, so you can go buy that.
I think it's actually a hardcover.
It's a hardcover.
Because I was reminded to pitch this because I saw the book in the Danger Room when I was downtown the other day.
There is a soft cover as well. It was listed on the Kickstarter.
And so go buy the book. Go to their website, see if you can donate or if you can buy some cool... Cause they have some cool shirts and stuff on there, so... I
guess they just have a shop and a PayPal.
Yeah. On this, for me, I don't know, that's the moral of the story at the end of the day is for webcomics is like, you got to read all this cool stuff for free and I want it to go on forever, and the way that I can help ensure that it goes on forever is to like give the creators as much money as I can, so...
Absolutely.
Remember to vote with your dollar. And you know what? Just skip an issue of a New 52 book this month. Don't buy it. And take that $2.99 and send it to...
$4.99 as the case is increasing.
Jesus. Even Marvel, man.
Yeah,
$4.99
especially
Deadpool
Marvel.
books.
Marvel is leading the way in the $5 book.
Well, they were doing $4.99 on Batman, and I guess Scott Snyder took like a huge offense with that to DC and was like, stop.
It's like, completely ridiculous.
Yeah, so... Congrats to
I think I figured out what's wrong with Frank Miller. Do you guys want to hear my Frank Miller conspiracy?
Sure.
I think what's happening is this. Scott Snyder has been systematically feeding off of Frank Miller for the entire time he's been writing Batman, and that's why it's in the last few years that Frank Miller has started to look so awful.
You think that Scott Snyder is like a mind vampire?
No, much more like a physical,
physical vampire.
Yeah,
okay.
But I mean,
he does write books about vampires. So
and he's going to write The Dark Knight 3 with Frank Miller,
right?
Which at this point I can just imagine is just going to be Frank Miller like hurling invective and like racial slurs, and Scott Snyder going, "What can I do with this?" I just can't. After Holy Terror,
I can't wait to read this.
Where do you go after Holy Terror?
To the doctor.
Only up, Joe.
I hope so, man.
Only go up.
You go to the doctor and you get treatment.
Holy Terror is interesting because I was there when we unpacked it when I was working in the comic book store, and I wasn't on the clock. I was just like there in the store, and I started flipping through it, and I was reading it, and then I realized I was sitting on the floor and I had read all of it. Like I just like couldn't put it down. And it was like a train wreck. I think I literally just could like not look away because I thought I would miss the train wreck.
That's
Because I don't remember enjoying it. It wasn't like I was loving the book. I just think that I was like,
really.
I was just captivated by how crazy it was.
There's a certain point where you're just like, oh shit, I have to. Wow, what is he gonna? Whoa,
What next?
I wonder what's on the next page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wonder that. I shut the book. I build a time machine and go back in time and knock the book out of my hand before I can open it.
It's funny because you guys talk often about quitting reading books.
I
You
don't.
stop reading books. It's something I don't do unless I forget that I was reading it.
Yeah, that's the
It
only
has
time
literally nothing to do with the quality of the
There
book
have
and
been-
everything to do with my memory and if I'm busy or not at the
There,
time.
there are definitely books that I've broken up with.
Oh yeah,
No.
same, and same with video games too. Like
video games all the time.
Yeah.
I am not enjoying something, I'm like, there's better things I can be doing with my time than finishing this book. I will throw it out and just pick a new book off the shelf.
I read very specific genres of books, and I think that that's probably like I've just kind of find this. I know what I like,
Yeah.
and I don't really stretch myself as far as books go. So maybe that's why I don't.
Well,
stop
and you
reading
like a
books.
genre
Well,
where
I-
you don't have to.
Yeah,
Right.
like,
I'm
I'll
a
try anything.
completionist. Like it's very hard for me once I've read something, even if I'm like, oh god, to just like, I may kind of skimp over a few pages, but it's very hard for me to just be like, nope.
Yeah,
Not
like
reading
if
that
I
anymore.
just hear about something, I'll be like, oh, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And if it's not good, I'll just stop reading.
Yeah, and that, I mean, like I do that
There's
with
a
lots
cat
of
talking
other
about-
stuff, but not with books. I think that's interesting. There's movies I've definitely stopped watching.
yeah,
There's video
that's-
games I've put down, but
Yeah, that's easy.
yeah. Books
Well,
is
speaking of books, are we ready to make Rex? Because I know I'd like to go to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I've said everything good I could possibly say about Strong Female Protagonist, except if you haven't read it, go freaking read it.
and
Yeah.
give it to everyone.
It's free.
Yeah,
It's a great
there's
gateway
reason,
comic
No reason for you not to
for-
read it.
Superhero fans into the world of indie comics too. I
It's
think.
so
Like,
good.
there are comics that you could go and spend $5 on in a comic book shop right now
That would not be as good
that
as
are
this.
not a tenth as good as this free comic
That
book.
you can read for free.
Agreed.
Go read it for free.
I read
It's-
it on the iPad, and I was a little bit disappointed that I couldn't just tap the image to go to the next page.
Yeah.
I had to like scroll down to the arrow. I always have that problem with comic books where they're not quite tablet.
I left my iPad at somebody's house this weekend, and so I had to read it on my regular old laptop.
Yeah, and
I
I mean it's not a huge detriment to the book, but I'm
No,
just
it's not.
like,
It's
we all
just
have tablets now. Like let's
page
get with the
layout.
times.
Well,
everyone.
Earthworld did update their website finally, and it's much better now.
It's because of me.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Earthworld.
Earthworld.
I did
To
that.
revisit Earthworld.
Yeah.
It's still going on. It's
I
really
should-
good.
I should catch up. Anyway, Joe, what would you like to recommend for us this week?
I decided I'm just going to pitch something because you guys aren't going to pick it anyways. I'm going to bring a book that I pretty much stole from Toby because I went over to his house the other day and I was like, I have the second volume of this, but I haven't been able to find the first volume to buy. And he was like, well, just take that one. It's Cerebus by Dave Sims.
That's not stealing, one.
Okay, now.
Two, I thought this was a very different story than what it was. Toby gave you a book.
He
is
gave
what
me a
happened.
book. He gave
That was
me a
very
book.
kind of you, Toby.
Gabby was having a sale last month. Like every year, she has a sale where she marks some stuff down as much as like 90%.
Yeah.
And she had an entire like case of Volume 1 of Cerebus.
Yeah.
It was marked down to $1 each.
I just need
And so I
Church and
picked up
State 1
one.
and 2, and then I'll be set.
I picked up Volume 1 because I was like, I've never read Cerebus, and it's the first volumes, and it's $1. Like, how can I not buy this for $1?
Yeah.
And so I bought it, and it's been sitting on my couch for a month, unopened. And Joe was looking at it, and he's like, I really need to get a copy of this. And I was like, no, you don't. He's like, why not? I was like, because that one's yours.
It's amazing.
There you go.
So, I'm kind of deciding. I think I'm just going to pitch the first volume, even though the first two kind of go together.
Well, they're phone book sized.
They're very big.
They are, but they're not dialogue heavy.
But it's holiday time, man. Don't kill me.
No, it is. You'll get through service really quickly. It doesn't matter. We're not going to pick it. I'm on a losing streak here. So Cerebus
Well, with that
is-
attitude, you are.
is Dave Sims' satirical look at comic books and the comic book industry, and he starts off by lampooning fantasy comics and basically having Cerebus, who is an aardvark, in this very kind of Conan the Barbarian type setting, And he kind of grows out of that and evolves as the series goes on. Eventually, it evolves into like craziness. And when I say craziness, I mean like there are definitely later volumes of this work where Cerebus is a bartender and he's serving the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And by the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, I mean actually the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Like fucking crazy town banana pants shit. But the first few volumes are excellent. And so, yeah, the first volume, it is pretty thick. It's probably a couple hundred pages, but
this is a Spawn character, right?
no. And I would hate you, but I know that you're trolling me, and I just don't understand why you
Cerebus
can't.
appears in Spawn.
He is
10 or 11
It is
or 9.
10.
10.
It's, or wait,
Yeah, it's
no,
10.
is it 10?
Yeah, it's the one right after the Neil Gaiman
Because
issue.
Dave Sim
Yeah.
wrote an issue of Spawn.
Dave Sims wrote
Well,
issue.
no, because it's 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Whatever.
So it is
It's
10.
10 or 11. One of those
Anyway.
two.
Yeah.
And Cerebus takes Spawn on a journey through his own mind.
Yeah. And it's very
it's a
much
Spawn
Dave
character.
Sims railing against
That's what Todd
the,
McFarlane says.
Yep.
the corporate comics world.
Yeah, it was indie he was making a statement as like indie comics are the savior of comics, and
Yeah.
if you write for the mainstream, you sold out. Kind of deal.
For more information, go and listen to the newest back matter.
Listen to Spawncast.
Yeah, so Cerebus, Dave Sims. The amazing thing to me is that at least until like the third or fourth volume, he was doing everything in this book by himself. It was just him and a pen.
He was
much.
working on it from the 70s,
Yeah,
I believe,
like,
until
he
the
does
2000s.
All the character designs, all the backgrounds, and eventually he brought in somebody just to do the backgrounds.
He was working on this for like 30 years.
But yeah,
And it's unfortunate that he got the Brain Eater hard.
No, like Alan Moore and Frank Miller got the Brain Eater. Dave Sims fell. What did I say the other day? Dave Sims fell into like a black hole, which happened to be his own asshole, and so was like,
Which is connected to his own asshole.
yeah, it was like this really weird, like
Klein
fourth
bottle.
dimensional Klein bottle type effect, where because at the same time where he was pumping out these incredibly misogynistic stories, he was also supporting a truly staggering amount of young talent, most of which happened to be young female talent in the comics industry. Like Dave Sims is a true champion of indie comics and like supporting burgeoning talent and stuff like that. He really is vocal in that world, and it's really weird. So who knows? Maybe this was his therapy, and that's why it got so fucking weird. But
I did hear from a comic creator that if you talk to Dave Sim on the phone, he won't talk to you until you signed a contract saying that you don't think he's a misogynist.
that's fair.
It's weird.
That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Is that real?
That, according to Scott Kurtz of PvP, who talked about it on an episode, I believe, of Webcomics Weekly, which was the podcast that he did with 3 other webcomic artists for a couple of years.
Yeah, I remember that podcast.
It was a good show.
But so yeah, that's my pitch. I'm gonna stop talking now because it's getting really difficult. But
Cool.
take it away, somebody else.
Cade.
Okay. So I have been watching a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer lately.
Surprising no one.
And I have actually been playing the Buffy the Vampire Slayer board game, which I have had sitting on my shelf unopened for a while.
Nice.
And it is surprisingly a very fun game.
Cool.
And it got me really back into Buffy, so I've been watching the show again.
And reading the comics.
No, I actually haven't been reading the Buffy comics.
No.
But Joss Whedon had written a futuristic Buffy comic that's not actually Buffy.
It's Buffy 2099.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of, yeah. This book is called Frey by Joss Whedon.
The Future Slayer.
The Future Slayer.
Slay the future.
Yeah.
This is with art by Carl Moline and Andy Owens. And it's basically futuristic New York, I think. And like by futuristic, it's like far future.
I think it's like 300 years in the future.
Yeah.
That's my memory of the comic that I haven't actually ever read.
Oh.
I just have kept looking at it and being like, oh yeah, this sounds interesting, and then not reading it.
he said that this was one of the stories he originally wanted to tell with Buffy, but it would be too expensive. Like, this was not something he could ever put on the screen, but it was something he wanted to put out. So he took it to Dark Horse Comics, and they made it before there was a Buffy comic.
And interestingly, the weapon that the girl uses in this, is her name Frey?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the weapon that Frey uses showed up in this comic first,
Yeah.
and then later showed up in the Buffy TV series, and is that weird stabby axe thing that she has like in the last season or two.
The scythe.
Sure.
In the last season, she finds a mythical scythe when Nathan Fillion is on the show as the evil for that season.
Yeah, and this is in the tradition of Buffy where it's like there's always been a Slayer or multiple Slayers. Like these are like champions that fight against vampires. Yep. And so this is just like in that bloodline or incarnation in the future, this is that one. This is a Slayer.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's her job to kill the vampires, which in this futuristic world have different names because almost nothing is the same between the two worlds.
Yeah,
Like-
in the Buffy universe, it's like people still don't know that vampires exist, but in the future world, they're like accustomed to there being vampires in the world. And it's interesting, I read this before I ever watched Buffy ever. In fact, I've only ever seen the first season of Buffy.
Which was a mistake.
Right, because it's a bad show.
The first season's not super great.
I always start with season 2, episode 3, then skip until Angel goes bad in season 2, and that's where I start the show.
That's
Which is a
weird.
terrible place to start if you've never actually seen the show.
True, but then you
it's
hit
like
all the good episodes.
It's
I'm
like when
gonna-
I start, if I ever read or listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks, which I do sometimes, like I don't listen to the first two. Start on the third one because that's when they get good.
Buffy as a show has a lot of really awesome moments, and you have to wade through a lot of crappy episodes to get them.
Exactly.
Well, I watched
But-
the first 3 seasons and I didn't see one awesome moment. So
Yeah,
I don't
the
know
point
what everybody's
being,
talking about.
you can enjoy this comic without ever having read or know much about Buffy at all.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's what I really
It's-
like about it.
It's a retelling of the Slayer story in the future.
Yeah. With
By
vampires, future
Joss
vampires.
Whedon.
Yeah.
Who,
This is way more my speed than Buffy ever was, so like I think that this is a fantastic book.
it is a phenomenal book.
It's like Star Wars, Buffy the Vampire Slayer in a weird way. It's kind of like with a little Blade Runner thrown in too.
Cool.
Maybe some Shadowrun.
Anything else you want to say, Cade?
I don't think so. I'm just flipping through the book and remembering how beautiful it is.
Yeah, the art's fantastic. The world is a really cool world for sure. And if you're looking for like interesting female protagonists, this is one. So definitely worth checking out, I think.
Nice.
Toby, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I have been following the news about Rat Queens, and the fact that, and I'm totally going to butcher his name here, Stepan Sejic is going to be taking over as the artist. And that got me interested in checking out his ongoing series, Death Vigil,
Yeah.
which is really, really good. But there's only like 5 issues out, and it's in the middle of an arc, so I'm not going to pitch that.
Okay.
Instead, I'm going to pitch a Marvel book.
Do it.
And this is a relaunch of a older character that really revitalized it. And it is Moon Knight by Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey.
Did you pitch this before?
I don't think so. I don't believe it's on our reading list.
I think we talked. Maybe we just talked about
We've
it.
discussed it.
Again, you've told me your whole reading list, so every time you do this, I'm like,
Oh, I'm
I thought-
constantly adding new stuff.
I thought Toby already did this.
But yeah, Warren Ellis came on for 6 issues, like relaunched Moon Knight, kind of like fucked with his backstory a little bit, updated him a bit, did these really awesome 6 issues, and then left the series.
Yeah.
And Brian Wood took it over, and I lost all interest.
Well, it's sad too because they were all really fun single issues. Like they are connected, but they can be read in any order because it's not a continuous arc through these 6 issues.
Yep.
What's really sad though is I found out recently that this was supposed to be 12 issues of Warren Ellis, and he just quit in the middle, like without
Really?
warning. And that's why they had to like hustle Brian Wood onto the book because he was supposed to do a year of Moon Knight. That was
That's
his
weird.
contract. And so he just up and left.
I thought it was always supposed to be 6 issues.
Apparently, because they didn't announce that it was going to be 6 until issue 4 had come out. That was when we learned that he was only going to be doing 6 issues. And apparently they weren't ever going to say that he was only doing a year, but his original contract said a year. So, kind of too bad, because I would have liked 6 more of this, because it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, but on the other hand, we're getting Supreme Blue Rose and Trees instead, and those books are both awesome. So
they were already coming out
super
when
broken up.
Was coming out.
But in any case, it's really awesome. It's 6 easy stories. You can bust them out right before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And Declan Shavely's art is incredible.
Yeah.
One of the best comics I've read this year.
Yeah, it's super fun.
So that's my pitch, Moon Knight by Warren Ellis. And the trade paperback came out just a little bit ago.
Yes.
I think that's what I was waiting for to pitch it.
Yeah, speaking of trade paperbacks coming out, the first trade paperback of the Image book that I'm pitching this week, it just came out, I think 3 weeks ago. But I missed it because I wasn't paying attention. So it's out. And I'm doing my big 52 weeks of Image. I think this is week 22.
Yep.
And I'm really excited about all the books that I'm pitching because I really love Image, and this is kind of a way for me to showcase like how diverse and the Image portfolio is. And I think I have to say that this is my favorite Image book I'm reading right now. It's definitely my favorite ongoing from Image right now, and this book took me completely by storm. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what it was about. And I saw the covers, and they were really striking, and I opened the issue, and they just absolutely fucking blew my mind. And every week on Top of the Stack that we talk about this show, we gush about it. It's been our Top of the Stack many, many, many times.
Okay. I know
and
which one
this is Shudder.
I have to cross a book off my list.
Which is a fantastic Image book. Absolutely amazing. And this is essentially a story about a girl who was kind of the premier world girl adventurer who went on these adventures with her dad, like all around the world and into space and the moon and all this kind of stuff. And then her dad died, and she went on adventuring for a while and eventually decided like she didn't really want to be an adventurer anymore. And just kind of left the whole life behind and went on, trying to lead a normal life. But she's
a photographer now.
Yeah, but she's still famous. Like, everyone knows her as this kind of, like, great adventurer. I think her name's Kate.
Yeah.
And this series essentially is set after all of that, and the world kind of catches up to her all of a sudden. And revelations about her father, revelations about her family, and about people that are looking for her and or her father and or her family all kind of show up at the same time, and it's this great confluence of like escape and violence and explosions and chase scenes through this like crazy futuristic world with Richard scary characters and like lions that wear fedoras and pinstripe suits and shoot Tommy guns out of flying cars, and then a other lion that rides a dinosaur, and
there's giant robots.
Yeah, it's just like if you could pack all the stuff that I love into a book, it's this one. And it's crazy, and there's like a tiny magic talking cat robot. Maybe he's a clock.
Well, yeah, it's like the black clock cat,
right?
That you see
like hanging on the wall. Like
except it's a robot that like walks around and talks.
Yeah, it's bizarre. This whole book is bizarre.
It's
and crazy
super bizarre and hard to describe.
The best possible way, and I love it. And the art is absolutely fucking phenomenal, and the colors are amazing. The story's really fun. It keeps me captivated every week, and the fluidity of the action and just the pace of this book drives me crazy every time I read it.
The art is beautiful.
So unreal, and Mannix and I both just like lose it every time an issue of this comes out because it's outstanding. And of the 52 weeks of Image, I didn't save it for last. I just kind of threw it in there because I love it, and I think everyone should be reading it. But I think this is my favorite Image book on my list. So yeah,
I actually just added it to my list, and now I'm gonna have to take it off again.
Cross it off. Everyone, well, unless we don't pick it, then you can pitch it again. But everyone go out and read Shudder. It's so good. I think 8 issues are out now, and the first trade's $10. So.
Thought 7 had just come out, but maybe it was 8.
I don't remember.
An issue just came out like last week.
Well, when the trade came out, issue 7 also came out that week.
Okay.
So I think 8 just came out.
You're probably right.
Something like that. But yeah, the first trade's $10. It's Image, so go get it. There's no reason not to.
Cool beans.
Joe, what would you like to read this week?
Shudder.
Boom. Book's so good. I'm so excited to talk about it. Everyone,
looks like that.
get
How
hyped.
could we not?
I think that
get hyped.
I don't know that we've had that level of unanimity.
Unanimity?
Yes, that word.
Unanimity? That one.
Unity,
Umaminess.
sameness,
Umami.
Everybody voting for the same thing. I don't
Right.
know if that's happened before or if it did when.
It has happened before a couple times. I distinctly remember one. We all voted for Andrew's book when we were recording at the Waterside House.
Okay.
When I lived on the ocean in a mansion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of miss those days.
I mostly
Not
just
gonna
miss
lie.
Corey.
Yeah.
I don't miss
I get to
Corey
go.
so much now that I have Benson.
Right.
But
Corey's the adorable dog that lived in that house with me.
And more cute sweaters.
And
Or
he is
the cutest one.
on the podcast.
Yes, yeah, you can hear him like walking around in the background and making noises on
There
those episodes.
was one where he even barked.
Oh,
And we have talked about him since then.
yeah.
And I have actually got remarks from people that, oh, yeah, he's been on the podcast.
That's right, yeah. That best guest host right there.
Yeah.
On the surveys, on your web surveys, fill it out at
just
Corey's.
type in other Corey.
Corey.
Yeah, I 100% forgot to put Adam on the list of guest
How do you
hosts.
forget your own brother?
This is a great moment.
Oh,
so
my God.
the other day, we're gathered at Toby's house for D&D.
Joe,
and
Kaylee, and Audrey were at my house for D&D, and because both Kaylee and Audrey have been on the show, I was like, oh yeah, we're doing the survey, and people have both voted for you guys. Like, they want you to be on more often.
And Adam is like, where was I on this? And Toby looks at him and without missing a beat, he's like, actually, I forgot to put you on the list. And we all lost our shit because it was like, it was just so perfect. It was such a perfect exchange. And it was just
You
like,
live with the man. You see him every day. How could you forget?
I forgot that he was on the show.
Oh my God. He's
Insight
been on
out
like
of
5
mind.
episodes.
Okay, literally, last week, you sent me the episode to put online, and I was like, I'll just make sure the survey works before I post it. Oh my God, it doesn't work. Here, let me, rush to export it to a different platform in, 3 minutes before I have to run out the door to a doctor's appointment. Because otherwise it's going to be, hours before I can put the show up, because I don't want to put the show up saying, hey, go fill out our survey, and then the survey's not there.
Right.
So literally I was doing it at, the last minute. I was like, okay, fill in all the names.
Still, though, that's your brother, man.
it's great.
He's been on a bunch of episodes, too.
Yeah, and he'll
it.
definitely be
It's-
on more in the future.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody.
We love you.
Just for the record, what would you have voted for if your vote mattered?
Oh, if my vote mattered? That's a good question. Joe,
We
what
need
did you...
this for posterity.
What did you...
Cerebus.
So you pitched Cerebus and you pitched...
Moon Knight.
Wow, that's tough. The only one I haven't read is Cerebus. But I love Moon Knight and Frey. God, I think just because I've never read it, I would vote for Cerebus.
I actually wanted to vote for Cerebus, but
It's huge, Joe. It's right. You put it in the holiday season. Bring it back when we have more
I'm gonna
time,
do,
and we'll read the first 2.
it was
think
mainly
I'll
that
either do,
I was feeling the room, and I'm like, after a recommendation like that, with Toby talking about it like that, everybody's gonna vote for Shudder.
It's really good.
And I want to read Shudder, so I'll just vote for that.
Cerebus is not. I'm actually kind of glad we didn't pick it because I think it needs to be talked about in context, and it may very well be something that I end up. There is actually somebody specific I'd really, really like to talk to about it.
So back
Our
matter.
friend Jorge, but
Oh, yeah.
he had to go and move back to the San Fernando Valley, so I'll have to see if he's got any plans to come up here. So we can nail him down and talk about Cerebus because he's the one that got me into it.
Yeah. It
I
also...
like that sentence until the word down.
Nail him? Well, that'll definitely happen.
I think also it would be nice to talk about more than just the first trade.
No, and that's what I'm talking about.
I think
I read
Cerebus would
up-
be a very strong long-run candidate.
Yeah.
I would not ask anybody to read. I stopped at 13, and there are 17.
No, I mean, but like
But the
a chunk
first,
of
yeah,
it.
I think the first 6. I think up to Jaka's story is where it starts to kind of get really weird.
Then that first 6 is like, that's a lot of book.
It's close to 1,000 pages.
Yeah. So anyway,
So yeah.
behind the scenes at View from the Gutters.
For next episode, read Volume 1 of Shudder.
Shudder,
Yes.
yeah.
And fill out our listener survey.
Yeah,
Do it.
and look forward. We finally decided what we're doing for episode 100. I don't know if we should announce it
No.
now.
Secret.
And if
Secret,
you see
but
one
get
of us,
hyped.
It's a surprise.
Get hype.
Coming
you-
the second week of January?
Something like that.
first week
In
I
3
don't even
weeks.
know. In 3 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yep. All right, guys.
In the new
Yeah, we
year.
love you. Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to View from the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.